Time. The answer is time.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. If this case went to trial and the prosecution put some of Suzanne's friends on the stand, say Sheila Oliver or Jeff Libler, a good defense lawyer could argue that it's all hearsay, and of course they would say things to make Suzanne look good and Barry look bad. This is why Suzanne's spy pen is such a stroke of good luck. It records unambiguously and without bias some of what was said behind closed doors, including, as it happens, an argument between the victim, Suzanne, and the former suspect in her murder, Barry. What we want to know are two things: the timing of this argument and the substance of the argument. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. It's quite interesting. I was thinking about, obviously I know I've written quite a few books based in Colorado, but I actually try to count them, meaning I've actually written about many different cases set in California. And I think the number is now around about 4 or 5. I've written about Chris Watts, John Benet Ramsey, Letitia Stout, Patrick Frazee, and now, although I haven't written a book about it, I'm covering now my 5th case set in Colorado, the Morphew case. I've also visited Colorado. I visited the Great Sand Dunes National Park. I've driven through Moffett. I've gone to Salida. I've gone to the Puma Path, that area of the home. I've also gone to the area, the general area, Alexandria in Indiana, where the Morphews grew up. So you could do worse than following this channel. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So we're going to page 10 of the 129-page affidavit, and we are looking at the Sheila Oliver interview. Where do you think Suzanne got the spy pen from? Do you think Suzanne decided one day to buy the spy pen? Well, the answer is it was Sheila Oliver who decided to give her the spy pen, and it's actually a really good thing in terms of justice in this case, potentially, that Sheila did this. Now, on May 11th, 2020, one of the detectives, Burgess, conducted a phone interview with Sheila Oliver. That's pretty early on. That was the day after Mother's Day, the day after Suzanne appeared to disappear. Sheila Oliver is Suzanne's best friend, and her best friend lives in Indiana, not Colorado. Sheila had constant communication with Suzanne via text messages and Snapchat messages until Saturday, not Sunday, Saturday, May 9th, 2020. That's the other thing that I think is quite important. There's some people who feel that Suzanne wasn't alive on Saturday. Well, she was communicating until Saturday with Sheila. Sheila said that Suzanne promptly checks her Snapchat messages, and Sheila was worried that Suzanne did not read 3 Snapchat messages from her on May 9th, 2020 at 6:40 p.m. and 6:48 p.m. Suzanne had been very excited about the wedding of Sheila's daughter. You would imagine as her best friend's daughter, getting married on May 10th, and suddenly Suzanne just disappears, doesn't seem to be available, doesn't seem to be communicating, doesn't seem to be watching this. Also, Suzanne was actually helping Sheila prepare and eager to watch it online. And so it's via Sheila that we get the following text with Suzanne. We are going to deal with the timeline again, and we're going to deal with that argument, but first we're just going to go through this. It's from the bottom of page 10. March 25th, so about a month and 2 weeks before her death, Suzanne sent the following text messages. Taking care of myself physically in a stressful marriage. Blank and I had a very tough talk yesterday. She's weary of the tension here, and I think that's a reference to one of their daughters. She knows how he is toward me and almost begged me to divorce him. And you may remember I played you that, we reviewed that text that also seemed to be one from one of the Morphew girls. Well, isn't this the same one? Anyway, Sheila said, what does he want? Have you talked about splitting, any more about splitting? Suzanne, he threatens, but I've never come out and said I wanted it today. And I think what she means there is until today. He thinks I'm holding on till after blank graduates, at least. He probably thinks I'm not strong enough to do it, given finances. So you can see that she's suggesting to Sheila that Barry is not worried that Suzanne would divorce him because of the way that they are tied to one another, that they're sort of strings and knots tying them to one another in the financial sense. Suzanne then goes on to say, I'm sick I had a conversation like that with my 16-year-old. Sheila goes on to say, he's nuts. Suzanne says, and I think this is really significant. She says, it's Jekyll and Hyde again. Pretty much told him I can't be healthy and stay in this. Sheila, what did he say? Suzanne, he threatens to come home and pack. Suzanne, he won't speak of divorce, begging for another chance. I'm so torn, but in my heart I know who he is. Now can you see that he seems to be begging to keep the marriage together, according to Suzanne, whereas she feels resigned. She's prepared to leave. According to the affidavit, during the interview, Sheila also told Detective Burgess that she was so concerned with Barry's behavior, and here it is, that she purchased a spy pen for Suzanne, which she gave to her, and this is so important, in January 2020. So Sheila was aware that things had deteriorated, escalated, worsened, to such an extent that by January 2020, she thought, I'm going to try and help my friend in the situation. And then they met up. Suzanne and Sheila met up with one another in Florida. And obviously this device, this spy pen, is designed to record conversations covertly. You see the pen there, but you don't realize it's actually a recording device. The downloaded audio files of the spy pen conversations are summarized in section 4 of the affidavit. So in terms of the all-important timeline, there's another milestone. Sheila is so concerned in January 2020 that she gives Suzanne this spy pen. Then the next question is, at what point after that is there a recording that is, let's say, actionable, that could be used as evidence in a potential trial? And the answer is 2 months later. In March 2020, Suzanne told Barry the following. This is what they picked up on this in the audio of the spy pen. It was Suzanne speaking, saying, this is all I hear every day. This is all I hear every day. What I'm not, what I should think. I'm not listening to that anymore. Listen to me, listen to me. Apparently Barry was interrupting. Listen to me. I've lived for years being told how I should feel, how I should act, how I should look, what I should drink, what I shouldn't drink, what I should put in my body, what I shouldn't put in my body. I fell into this is not, and then she mentions the word controlling, talks about more talking, says it's not okay, front and back. Then later in the conversation, Suzanne and Barry were arguing again. This part was a little more distinct and decipherable. Suzanne says, you want me to just, Barry says, no, I'm just asking you to, Suzanne says, blindly go into this? In other words, she was saying, you want me to just blindly go into this? What do you think that is a reference to? Do you think it's a reference to Barry wanting her to just go blindly into their marriage? I don't think it's that. And if we look at a little bit more of the context, could it be that Suzanne is talking about blindly going into some other financial arrangement, some other financial scheme? And this is in March 2020. Barry says, "You don't have to blindly do anything. I'll make plenty of money this year to pay you back." Doesn't that seem as though the blindly going into something is blindly in terms of money? Anyway, Suzanne says, "I don't want to talk about it since you yelled at me the other day." Barry responds, "Okay, I will make plenty of money this year, this summer, to pay you back, probably within a month." Now, bear in mind, a month from this date brings us to April 2020, and Suzanne disappeared about 10 days later. Barry goes on to say, "This is something that I told you that was important, and you decided to go against my wishes." Later on the spy pen, Suzanne said, "It's all about money. 80% of our arguments are because of money. It's money, it's about money." And then at 1 hour, 17 minutes, Barry said, "If you want your money, I'm going to pay you back. I'm going to make plenty of money." He also said, "I told you it was important. You decided to go against my will and my wishes." Suzanne responded with words to the effect of, "I'm not against it. You brought it up and we talked about it." Those words are mighty chilling, aren't they? I'm quoting what Barry apparently said on the spy pen. "You chose to go against my will and my wishes." Well, I guess the question is, what happens when someone does that? We've heard talk of Suzanne feeling that she was being controlled. The word controlling comes up on this particular recording. Was her husband a controlling figure? Was her husband a little controlling or very controlling? If a marriage with religious overtones becomes a scenario where a husband feels he owns his wife, then ownership can become possession, and possession can be a very dangerous thing to try to get out of, especially in a possible scenario where the wife has come into a lot of money and the controlling man is in financial trouble. He may feel, if he feels that he owns his wife, that he possesses her money as well. But what if the woman doesn't want to be owned? What if, despite large assets like homes and vehicles coming onto the spousal spreadsheet, what if she doesn't want to be possessed? I'm not going to take it further than that. I do think this is a pretty important piece of evidence, and there's not really much. They're few and far between, but this one is pretty important because, as I said, it's unambiguous evidence for something that was said by Barry and by Suzanne at a critical part of the timeline. This wasn't 6 months earlier or a year earlier. This was in the run-up to the final days of Suzanne's life. And so I think what this demonstrates, in a strange kind of quirk of fate, is the power of the pen.
The pen is truly mightier than the sword.
Thank you for listening. If you haven't followed any of my coverage on the Caitlin Armstrong case, I want to encourage you to do that, because I'm actually coming to America partially to attend that trial in Austin, Texas. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.